Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Amicable Divorce Network podcast. This is season 2. Thank you for joining us. And this season, we are going chapter by chapter through the Amicable Divorce Network book, which is titled Divorce Amicably, Your Roadmap to Resolution, and is designed to help you save time, money, and sanity through the divorce process. Today, I'm joined by one of our members as well as authors. And so if you have the book, you have read her content, and she is joining me today. It is Kathleen Shack, and she is here to talk about how to emotionally prepare for divorce. And divorce can, of course, be one of the most devastating, sort of shake you up life changes that people could go through. And so she's going to talk to us today about how to manage that. Thank you for joining me, Kath.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
As a mental health professional, you see individuals, you see couples. So emotional preparedness is probably something sometimes people wish that they had.
Right.
But let's first talk about the people who maybe don't have that opportunity. Sometimes people are surprised by the divorce. Something happens that is just, I'm out of the situation, or they're surprised. I mean, we've all seen the situations where somebody's served quite to their surprise and are just blindsided by this, whether they should be or not. Let's talk about the people who don't have the opportunity to emotionally prepare. What would you advise in those circumstances where it's more of a blindsiding?
I think for the people who are blindsided and are not expecting that kind of a news, I think it's most important for them to be able to get support around them as quickly as possible. So that is probably going to look like friends or family or a divorce support group often through churches, through other organizations, but making sure that they're getting emotional support is the number one piece. And then the second piece is making sure they're getting professional support and guidance that they can trust, because they're in a situation where they're not able to trust anyone probably in that moment. And they really need to know that there's somebody looking out for them and going to make sure that they're going to get through the situation in as stable a way as that they possibly can. So somebody's going to look out for their finances. They're going to look out for them legally. So it's really important they get professional support and emotional support, contacting a counselor, asking friends what counselors they've been to, some ways to just make sure they have somebody they can call and talk to start trying to wrap their mind around it, because they're going to be in shock in the beginning.
And I see people who are blindsided have this very large emotional reaction because they've been hurt. They've been maybe as hurt as they have ever been by being blindsided by this divorce. And so they react by being very aggressive in the divorce because they want to hurt the other person. And really now the only method that they have is litigation. Of course, that's not what we advise from the mental health standpoint. Why is that harmful?
It's so harmful because in the decision-making process that you're making during divorce, you're making lifelong decisions that are going to impact not only you, but also impact your children. And so you want to try to stay as calm and business-minded as possible through the divorce process and be as detail-oriented as possible so that you're not having to go back later and have to readdress different issues. So you want to make sure that you're getting the counseling and the coaching that you need so that you aren't making rash decisions that you can't take back later, and things that are going to impact you long-term in terms of how co-parenting is going to go in the future or how division of assets might go in the future. So you want to be calm and collected and cordial if you can be, but at least business-like, and just focused on getting the business end of a divorce completed, and then working on your own emotions yourself and not taking them out on the person that you're going to be divorcing.
Yeah, I think one of the messages that we always want to make sure that we convey to people is don't make emotional decisions in a legal process. Sort of the basic way that I see this is people hiring really a bulldog attorney and hiring that attorney's anger and vitriol. And I always tell people that's the most expensive thing that you can hire from an attorney. You should hire their wisdom, their resolution skills, their knowledge about, something that relates to your particular situation. So that is really wasted money. But I also see sort of micro decisions where people might ask for something in the divorce simply because they know the other person wants it. And that's just a waste of time as well. If that's not truly something that you want, that will serve you long term, and you're doing it just emotionally to poke at the other person. So we always want to, send that messaging out for these emotional times. Meet with somebody like Kathleen who helps you with those emotions so you can move forward healthy and channel those in the right way, which is not the legal system.
Right. Definitely not through the legal system. And you want to try to stay out of court as much as you possibly can and be able to try to have conversations and just get things settled out of court so that you're controlling what's happening with your family and with your life and your finances versus having somebody that you've never met giving you an answer about what's going to happen with your life.
Yeah. And that's the judge. They don't know you. They don't have a lot of time to get to know you. They have to move their calendar along and service the next case that comes up. So a lot of people feel like that's a very unpersonalized and rash result, and it is. So with the Amicable Divorce Network, we can take time and care in these situations to have things handled properly and out of court. So let's pivot now to the people who maybe see a divorce happening on the horizon. Maybe they've gone through discernment counseling and have made that decision, or that's just sort of where they're at in their head, and they do have some time to reflect and prepare. What can these people do to emotionally prepare for divorce?
I think it's important that these people also keep in mind they're going to need support, and that even if they are the one who finally was the one to say, we're getting divorced, or I think that's the best decision, even if they're the ones who had to say it, they're still suffering and they're still going through a grieving process. It's not easy on them, just as it's not easy on the person who's receiving that news. So very important for them to get support. As we know, divorce is 90% emotion, 10% business. So make sure that the emotions are getting dealt with and processed and handled so that they can then get into the business side of going through the legal process and dealing with the finances. I think it's important that they look at things that they can control and focus on those and not stress out too much about the components that they can't control, and try to just stay calm, try to be cordial, try to stay in a place where you're being amicable and cordial to the person that you're getting ready to get divorced from. Because the nicer that you are during the process, the further you're going to get in a really productive way. And you don't want to cause issues where there don't need to be more issues.
Yes. Often it's really hard for people to communicate with one another during this time. And that may not be possible. And we understand that as lawyers, as mental health professionals. We hope that people get to that point if they're not there initially, because having to have your attorney have routine conversations about your life, who's picking the child up from school, how is this bill going to get paid, routine things like that, really costs a lot of money and delay, because you may contact your attorney about this question. They're in court, they're in mediation, it's 2 days later, and you spent $500 to get this question answered. So do think about things that way, and as much as you can, do try to communicate very neutrally, very factually, because it can save you a lot of money in the long run. What else can people do to emotionally prepare for divorce?
I think an important component to look at is how they are present for their children and how they're present in their lives. And so again, they want to be looking at how can they individually be bringing them their best selves to the situation. So if that's getting support, getting counseling, finding a new workout routine, working on maybe an addiction they have or any other issues they may have, you want to get yourself in the strongest, healthiest place possible so that you're bringing your best self to the most stressful time in your life. And then you want to look at with the kids, for instance, how can you be present with them? Make sure that they're feeling connected to you. Make sure that they're feeling love, that they're feeling a sense of stability, because kids are going to want to know that you've got this figured out, that you're going to get the details ironed out. The kids don't want to be anxious, so they're going to be looking to you for that security and that sense of stability. So it's really important as the adult in the situation that you're as stable and put together as you can be. And then when the kids aren't there, if you need to scream in your car, or if you need to be blasting music or going and seeing your counselor twice that week, that's okay. But you just want to make sure that you're bringing your best self to your parenting role in particular.
Yeah, I always tell a lot of people, whatever resources you have, that's, where you need to filter it. And reflecting back on the getting healthy, I mean, we see so many clients who really take a turn towards fitness and get incredibly healthy during this period of time, because it's interesting. I mean, your body and the food you eat and exercise and sleep are things that you can control.
Yeah.
during this period of time. You can't control the other person's reaction or the judge's calendar or, your attorney's schedule, all these things that might frustrate you. So we do see a lot of people do that, and it's not bad. It's actually great. It might help you, with anxiety, with sleeping better, with feeling better about yourself. And so I think that's sort of a stereotype that we see, but it's actually a great thing sometimes that people do. And also we want to make sure people, in combination with doing the physical activities, are taking care of the mental health as well. So do treat both equally. They're equally as important, if not the emotional being maybe even a little bit more at this period of time, to make sure that you can handle and go through this process. Any other tips that you have for people?
One thing I was just thinking of when you were talking about getting healthy and making sure that you're looking at, what you're putting in your body. For people who are really struggling during the divorce process, oftentimes they're going to be having gastrointestinal issues and they're not going to feel like eating. Unfortunately, divorce is a really good weight loss plan, but not one that you want to be doing. So you want to make sure that you're getting some kind of nutrients in. And so I always encourage my clients who aren't able to really stomach eating solid food that they are at least getting some Pedialyte or getting some Ensure or doing some kind of liquid diet where they're getting nutrients, taking a vitamin every day, things where they're really trying to make sure that their body's not shutting down while they're also emotionally going through the grieving process. So even if you have to sign up with a nutritionist or just go to your doctor or just go down even sometimes the baby aisle and look at, okay, where's the Pedialyte? Where are some liquid shakes or something that you can be doing just to make sure you're getting those nutrients in? Because the big piece here is you want to be taking care of yourself and doing a lot of self-care so that you're getting through this in the healthiest way possible. And then if you have kids, that you're there for the kids in a healthy way.
Yeah. And that's very true. I'm a mediator. And I often see where people who are the clients don't order lunch during the mediation. And we certainly want people to not be hangry and to make good decisions, and all of that throughout the mediation. So we try to really encourage people to eat, but we do see weight loss and loss of hair, and things like that simply through this process. So that's a very actionable tip. Get yourself some vitamins, those greens, get yourself a protein shake if you're in that situation where just a lot of anxiety and it's turning your stomach. Take these actionable steps. It will make you feel better in the long run, and at the end of your divorce you won't be bald. So that is your hair is not prioritized. I can tell you that from personal experience. So just make sure that you take these very easy steps. Anything else you think people should be doing?
I think it's important to keep in mind that you're making some decisions right now on a short-term basis that are going to last the rest of your life. So you want to really be taking the time to pause, and you want to take the time to read through everything that the attorneys are saying. You want to read through everything that you're hearing about your children and maybe what's going to be healthiest for them. You want to really take the time to pause before responding to the person that you're getting divorced from. So there's all kinds of opportunities if somebody's emailing you or texting you to just pause, slow the thing down, just take some time to think through what you're feeling, why you're feeling that way, what kind of response you'd like to make, maybe even do a couple of edits before you then press send to then respond to that person. You can take 24 hours and think about what you'd like to say or consult with some people before responding. Don't feel like you have to be, on it every second of the day and you have to respond instantly. Just take your time and get through the process in whatever healthiest way you need to.
And one thing as a lawyer that I see that I wish people would do better is to have things handled properly and to take a little bit of time. Something I hear often is, I want this done as fast as possible, fast, fast, fast. And as I'm trying to draft these documents for them, a common thing I see, so I'll use it as an example, is somebody has a pension. And I'm like, hey, what are we doing with this pension here? Because sometimes these are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, very valuable. Oh, everybody's just keeping their own. And if I say, let's hit the pause button, let's get a quick valuation. We have a team that does that on a very quick basis, small fee, but we need the information. No, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. To their detriment, because I imagine if I had the ability to ask them 2 years later if they cared about that pension, they would say, I wish I had just taken a couple, extra weeks to get that handled properly, because that's a huge asset I walked away from. So use the professionals. If your lawyer is saying, especially, hey, I think we should do this, do it. They're only there to help you, and you get one bite at the apple. You get
Right.
one chance to divide your assets, to come up with this parenting plan, to look at alimony, to look at child support, to look at everything. So do it correctly. Just hit the pause. Time passes quickly, another 30 days, you'll be glad you did that 10 years from now. So it's okay if things take a little bit of time to be done correctly.
Right. And I think it's so important for clients to listen to their attorneys because
Thank
they
you.
took the time to hire them. They have some trust for you, even if they're struggling with trust right now. And it's so important. I'm constantly coaching my clients. Call your attorney back. Ask these questions that you're asking me right now, because these are questions you really need to be asking them. You're wanting clarification. They don't know that you don't know the answer. So
Exactly.
I'm always encouraging people, ask lots of questions of your attorney, get the information, listen to their advice, because you've never been through this before. Your attorney does this every day. So I think it's so crucial that people take their attorney's advice and really listen to their specific situation. Every single divorce is different.
Yeah.
Your next door neighbor, your best friend, their situations are not going to be the same as yours. So you can't just do a cookie cutter, copy and paste their divorce. You have to listen to your attorney about your specific issues and do what's going to be best for your family long term.
Yeah, I find people compare themselves to other people so often and sort of circumvent legal advice, either because they look on Google or they say, oh, my neighbor or my sister, something else. But it's as personalized as going to the doctor. Your family is different, your finances, you are different, your child is different, your house is different, whatever it is. And people wouldn't say, oh, my sister went to the doctor and got this diagnosis, and so mine must be exactly the same. So the same with the legal process, and with amicable divorce, we design the entire thing for the parties and what they can afford. And that's definitely taken into account. So if your attorney is saying, hey, let's pivot these dollars you have towards getting this pension handled properly, do that. I do think people regret not handling things properly. They really sacrifice accuracy for speed, and this just isn't the process to do that. We all understand you want it to be done as soon as possible. You want to move forward. There's just a value in conclusion, but there's also a value in having some money in the bank 10 years from now that you're like, man, I'm glad I have that. And that's been collecting interest. That was great. So yes, listen to your lawyer. Thank you, Kathleen. Listen to your mental health professional. I'll send it back her way. So listen to the right person for the right issue, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. You want to specialize and go to people that are specialists in their field to help you get through this.
Yeah. If your financial advisor is telling you this, then, and it's about your finances, then that is the best information that you can get. Just to reflect on some of these tips here, what we are saying, how you can prepare to divorce, how you can prepare to do that emotionally, is to remember first, you can control only what you can control and work on that. You can control 50% of your divorce. One of our members, Story Jones, says that all the time. And I think it's perfect to think about. You can only control yourself, your, person, and focus on making that the best as possible. Second tip, be businesslike and be as efficient as you can be. Try to communicate as much as you can and reduce costs. Number 3, get healthy and prioritize your health, both mental and physical. 4, focus on your children and be the best that you can for them, and be a hot mess when they aren't around, because they do remember that and they do need your support, and for you to be a strong person even when you don't feel like it. And number 5, it's okay to hit the pause button. It's okay to take a little bit of time to do things properly. Did we hit all the good tips, Kathleen?
I think we did. Yeah.
All right. So if you are listening to this and you want to reach out to Kathleen for help in your situation, Kathleen, how can people reach you?
You can find me on my website, mftga.com, or you can send me an email, kathleen@mftga.com. And I see clients in Georgia, so I'm happy to work with anybody in the state of Georgia. And then if you contact me and you're out of state, because I do get a lot of out of state contacts, then I can refer you to certain directories of where you can find different counselors in your area that have training that can really help you through this divorce process.
And if you're driving in a car and listening to this, you can find that information in the show notes. We will also be posting information on divorceamicably.com, and Kathleen is a contributing writer to our book, Divorce Amicably, Your Roadmap to Resolution, if you want to read more about this topic and others. Kathleen, thank you so much for all that you do for people and for joining me today.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.